ヌジャベスさんとの思い出を教えてほしいです。
ヌジャベス、彼とはやっぱ初めは僕はそうですね、だからいろんな人と出会っていく中で、多分99年ぐらいに、なんか急に連絡が来て、ちょっとレコードを一緒に作りましょうみたいな。それ僕は彼の名前を見て誰だかも知らなかったし、何人かもぶっちゃけ知らなかったし、それでまあ実は彼が日本人で、まあ芸名だったんですけど、セバ君っていう人がいて、レコード店もやってて、そうなんだって感じで、それで初めて会ったんですよ、僕は日本行った時に。それで彼の車の中でビートを聴かせてくれて、それでそのままカセットくれて、それでその中から一曲を選んで、ラブシックっていう曲を作ったんですけど。
This past May, I got to do something that I had been dreaming about doing my entire life. I got to visit Japan. And I know that sounds a little stereotypical, but it really was a dream come true. As part of a late graduation present, my dad decided in April of last year that he had finally found tickets to go to Japan for me and him. We planned to stay by Tokyo Bay for half of the week and then stay in inner Shibuya for the rest of it. And while both spots were absolutely incredible, Shibuya had something different. Probably the biggest thing that I picked up in Shibuya that I wasn't able to pick up anywhere else in Tokyo was how strongly the music influenced this city. In every building and every part of the city, there was always some different kind of music playing, whether you were in a convenience store, a record store, or a restaurant. There was one artist that I could tell was played significantly more than the rest. Nujabes. Jun Seba, or Nujabes, the prolific and almost mythic underground hip-hop producer, who has been made somewhat of a legend, has one of the most amazing legacies out of any producer, or any artist for that matter, ever. His influence has impacted the lo-fi hip-hop scene for years, and it was very true when I was actually in Japan. And one of the most amazing things I think he ever did in his entire career was his collaboration with Shin02 and their work Lovesick. This is my Lovesick Hexalogy CD I got while I was in Japan. It's a beautiful CD, one of the best looking CDs I own, and it's full of super interesting details. As soon as you open the CD, you see notes from the original drafts of the Lovesick lyrics. You can see Shin02's entire thought process throughout this entire draft of the song. And then as you open it up, you're greeted again by the cover art designed by graphic artist CU and a more monotone version of the cover on the instrumental CD. Removing the first CD, you get the track list and the credits for each song, and removing the second one, you get the Nujabes insignia. It's truly a beautiful CD, but it came with one other thing. A booklet. When I originally looked through this booklet, I just saw the lyrics of the songs and some words in Japanese, and I didn't think too much of it. Until recently. I looked back through it again, and I looked at the back, and I realized that there was commentary from Shin02 about all of the Lovesick installments. Seeing this, I looked through YouTube to see if anyone had ever broken down Lovesick Hexalogy before, and I couldn't find anything. So I decided to do that right now. In this video, we're going to be looking at the commentary from Shin02 along with the lyrics of each Lovesick installment and talk about what each one means. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay a while. This is going to be cool. But wait, before we continue, my name's Henry, I love music, and this is where I talk about it, my YouTube channel. This is how I usually film my videos, but I felt like for the intro I want it to be a little more classy, I guess. But if you're interested in any other types of music commentary, artist reactions, album reactions, stuff like that, you should check out the rest of my channel. We just hit 500 subscribers not too long ago, and I'm trying to go way up from there in 2025. So help me out, subscribe, like the video, and yeah, I won't hold you guys any longer. Let's get into it. All right, this, if you could see, is the booklet that was included in the CD and where all the Shin02 commentary is going to come from. I'm not going to read everything, obviously. You can find some of it posted online, but I'm going to read the important parts and then the relevant parts to the breakdown that we're going to do. Talking about the whole concept of lovesick in general, Shin02 says, "We all know that love can be sickening, that true love, it turns your world upside down. A feeling that can transform your constitution and render you helpless. How long that dreamlike infatuated period will last, whether days, years, or lifetime is entirely up to you. It's all timing though, you can't ever plan on it. One day when you look back, everything makes sense and scripted. Are we simply a series of abstinence? Or do we attract each other by metaphysical means? Love defies formula. It borders on insanity and spirituality. No matter how slim the chances, once you meet the love of your life, you might just end up creating something that may outlast your lifetime. The lovesick hexalogy as a whole just professes to how powerful love actually is and how it can radically change the course of your entire life. As we start to get through these songs, you'll start to notice that the baseline idea of each song is very similar, as why it's a series, and that is Shingo-2 talking about how crazy love is, but each different song will profess to a different aspect of that love. As you're gonna find out, and as you probably already know from listening to it, it's very cool. The commentary on the first Lovesick installment talks mainly about the history on how it was recorded, like the equipment and the people that Shingo-2 was talking to at the time. He talks about how the original Lovesick beat had been promised to Pays Rock, another collaborator of Nujabes. And Shingo-2 recalled Nujabes telling him that if he wanted the beat, he'd have to talk to Pays Rock, which lucky for them, they were already friends. Pays Rock allowed Shingo-2 to use the beat, and the rest is kind of history. Along in this commentary, he talks about the importance of another collaborator, DJ Scratch, and how his works on the hexalogy were immensely important. But the most important part in terms of what the song is about in this commentary is this part. He says, as noted, the song is a simple letter from a 25-year-old rapper. It was a departure from my usual style, but a return to poetry that I used to write back in high school. In essence, rap is a form of creative writing and storytelling at its best. I was building a character that spoke in idioms and riddles, but also a narrative you can relate to by reading between the rhymes. And I think Lovesick Part 1 perfectly encapsulates that. This song is about, one, how crazy love is and how it defies any kind of theory or any type of mathematical calculation. But I also believe it's about the love that Shingo-2 has for rapping and for this type of poetry that he's talking about. In the second verse he says, God bless this opportunity for me to find a voice for some words that have waited for way too long. Talking about how thankful he is for music, because it's a lot easier for some people to write their feelings or those words into a song rather than just like speak them regularly. That also with the fact that he wanted to dedicate the first installment to the goddess of music, it just encapsulates this idea of his love for music. Cause the beat plus the melody makes me speak of L-O-V-E eloquently so evidently. That's the chorus. The combination of a masterful beat like the one produced by Nujabes and the melody created by Shingo-2 allows him to speak about love. And in this sense, it's a much more eloquent way, as he said, than he was used to. He talked about how this was more of him writing poetry, like he did in high school, rather than rapping. Lovesick Part 1 is a beautiful profession of Shingo-2's love for music and Nujabes' love for producing. But I don't think either of them knew how crazy this series would turn out to be just yet. But what they did know is they wanted a second installment. The conception of the second installment in Lovesick came shortly after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Shingo-2 was scheduled to fly back home from Tokyo to California the week of the attacks, but obviously that was put on pause for a little bit. The entire world seemingly shut down, and it caused Shingo-2 to stay in Tokyo and work on music. While I was focusing on writing my Japanese album, Nujabes emailed me another track. It was a nice release from the task at hand, and the vibe inspired me to write what I was feeling towards the world. The first line came naturally. Once again now. In my opinion, Lovesick Part 2 talks about the appreciation of love itself. Talking about no matter what's going on in the world or what all is happening, we still have love for each other, for the small things in life, for the world itself. Perhaps we're even closer now after all things considered on this side of the planet. Couldn't pick a better time, even if we planned it. Now that line itself is good, but taking into context what was going on in the world at the time, it puts into perspective what he was trying to say. There were hundreds of people that lost a loved one in those attacks, and he finds himself extremely lucky to have the one he loves with him. And as he keeps expressing his appreciation for love, he then talks more about his love for music and how it can unite the world again in a kind of broken state. The rhymes will heal cause I believe in music. In times of need, I won't be leaving you sick. The beat plus the melody's the recipe. Your vibe surely brings out the best in me. He's writing the song saying, hey, the world isn't great right now, and there's a lot of things going on, but we still have each other. we still have love. And most importantly, we still have music to express those feelings. All good souls lost, may they rest in peace. Hip-hop worldwide, we got to live in peace like that. A great ending to this song, and personally, I'd never even realized that that was the state of the world whenever the song was released. And it just makes the track so much better to me. Lovesick Part 2 has always been my personal favorite out of the 6, and it still currently is, just because of how sentimental it is. And knowing that Shingo2 was writing that to literally the entire world in a time of strife is just so crazy to me. And those lyrics coupled with Nujabes's light, flowy instrumental production is just so beautiful to me. One thing I want to point out about the production of Hexalogy is that since it's a series, the production stays relatively the same throughout the entire series, with the same kind of like deceptively simple drum pattern and the same sample chopping throughout the entire thing. But Nujabes is kind of a master of inserting like a whole vibe into the beats he produces, and Shingo2 is really great at writing lyrics to those vibes. It just adds a whole nother layer to this series, because while Shingo2 is rapping all of this, the beat is just reinforcing all of these feelings that he's saying. They're both masters of their craft. It's crazy. Moving on to Part 3, Shingo2 writes, "It seems as if we struck a chord with Part 2, and Nujabes would mention working on the next installment. When I received the instrumental for Part 3, I just wanted to speak about the power of music and the fact that we need to go back to our roots to discover it. I structured the song so that the second verse would mirror the first verse, a technique I used previously for a song called Pearl Harbor, and the third verse would round it out. At this time, Nujabes decided to include Part 3 on Modal Soul and postponed plans to press the single." Now, I want to read a bit of a longer section from this commentary just because the story that Shingo2 writes is very, very, very cool. Jeff Resurrection, aka Jeff the Beatbox Prince, was a young, talented musician. In late 2009, Jeff's family contacted me that he was bedridden with terminal cancer and he would like to meet me. Coincidentally, he lived very close to my home in Los Angeles and had even attended my show at Citrus College. He requested that I sing Lovesick Part 3, but it wasn't a part of my repertoire. So I performed Battle Cry and Lovesick Part 2 with my friend CAV3. Coincidentally, the word resurrection is scratched at the beginning of Part 3. I'm sure he was aware of that. In the end, he passed away in January of 2010, and Nujabes offered his condolences as well, as I was in touch with him for the instrumental for Part 3. I was heartbroken over the loss, but also felt a renewed sense of commitment to perform the Lovesick series. In February, I re-recorded Part 3 with a band, released an a cappella as a tribute to Jeff, unaware that I would never hear from Nujabes again. Lovesick Part 3 is a powerful song. Shingo2 talking again about his love for music, but talking about it more as kind of a lost art that we need to go back to our roots to find. We can take it all back to the register and start all over from the canister. Let's break it all down into pieces of bright moments that pass by like a meteorite. He's talking about starting over, going back to the very beginning to find that love again. I feel like this song is very true now, especially where it seems like a lot of people are using music as just kind of another business strategy. The love for the music isn't there. It's just purely being used for money, for fame, whatever you want to call it. And Shingo2 is talking about going back, finding the small parts of life, the moments that created this love, and working them back together. It's funny how the music puts time in perspective, add a soundtrack to your life and perfect it. Wherever you are feeling blue, keep walking and we can get far. Wherever you are. Like I was saying earlier about Part 2, how I didn't even realize that that was the state of the world whenever he had dropped the song. Music really does put time into perspective. Looking back at the context of different songs or just seeing when they were released in general, you really stop and think about time itself. I was born in 2005, so I wasn't even alive for like half of this Hexalogy's release. And it just puts into perspective, there has been so much that has happened since before I even existed. This song is amazing, and I definitely think it's the most popular out of the 6. Part of that is definitely because of its inclusion on Nujabes' album Modal Soul, but if you didn't know, the Hexalogy version is actually different. It includes the original third verse that Shingo2 talked about being removed from the song, and then later leaked online. The first verse, in my opinion, is someone talking to another person that they used to have love for but have moved on from that. And the person speaking, talking about how the music that released at the time can take them back to that spot of love, of passion. Talking about the memories it can unlock. Part 3 is great, and it talks about the love of the past and to not forget it. Moving on to part 4, Shingo2 says, around 2008, we started talking about adding another part to the Lovesick series. When we met at his studio in Shibuya, I told Nujabes, I already feel the series is complete, so I don't want to add another part, but I'd be up for it if you gave me 3 more instrumentals that I can't refuse. Among the beats he sent me, 2 of them would become part 4 and part 5. When Nujabes passed away unexpectedly in 2010, I had the chorus sitting around for a long time. So I finished up the verses and recorded the song at Nujabes' studio. The unfinished songs gave me the motivation to finish the work at his place, which Hideout has kept around. The ritual to record in Kamakura will continue for the rest of the series. Part 4 was released in 2011, about a year after Nujabes had passed. And as Shingo2 said, the tradition of recording the rest of the songs at Nujabes' place in Kamakura would become a staple for the series. As the rest of this series was all recorded after Nujabes' untimely passing, the rest of this series gets a little more somber and starts to appreciate a lot of the smaller things in life. As in part 4, the song is talking about the love of the seasons and the love of the different times of the year. Something you don't really think about as you're moving through life. You kind of just notice the seasons, or you notice the time whenever there's holidays or whenever there's something like big happening, but the rest of it is just kind of another day. In the song, he talks about how love should be appreciated at every time of the year. Her joy over spilled milk on a quilt of lavender woven in the fabric of our calendar. Dress up at the end of October, give thanks to the fam in November, a cold but cozy December, and we're back to the origin, so let me begin. Love is kind of like the seasons, or just like the changing year. Love is not, as he says, always warm like February. Sometimes, like he says, it's cold but cozy, like December. But he talks about the joy of being able to go through all of those cycles with that person. There is joy in being able to pass time with someone and experience love throughout time with someone. And part 4 does a really good job at encapsulating that. Now, part 4 probably had the least to break down, but part 5, it gets a little heavy. The beat for part 5 was initially intended for a separate collaboration, but after meeting Jeff, I wanted to use the somber feel for part 5. Initially, Nujabes rejected the idea to use that beat for part 5, citing it was indeed too dark, but eventually he agreed. I really wanted it to be a serious departure from the harmonic atmosphere that surrounded the series and make the last part a spiritual one, but obviously the turn of events made it much more intense. I had already finished the first verse about Jeff when I received the news of Nujabes passing, and while being overwhelmed by the outpouring of condolences from all around the world of June, I finished the second half of part 5, so now the 2 events were represented in the verses. It is kind of crazy to think about how writing this song in memory of someone who had just passed that was a huge fan of this project, and then having the second half of this collaboration pass and having to write that in as well. It's crazy. It's so unfortunate. I know a lot of this video has been breaking down Shingo2's part of Lovesick, but Nujabes cannot be overstated how important he was to this project. And his passing, as you'll be able to tell, hit Shingo2 hard. Till death do us part, and it did, come sudden like clouds, and it hid my sun. My truth heavier than imagined, a lid die cast in lead, on our lives we nourished. Talking about how hard loss hits you. It covers up your sun, as he was saying. It kind of saps all the joy in your life. In your last breath you told me that you had to go, 'cause it pained you so. Oh, I loved you so much, so I was selfish to hold on and cling on to your body that hosts a soul, that wanted to set free the eagle in a cage. I watched grown men moan and women weep as you quietly descended 6 feet deep. But the spirit ascended before our wet eyes, a gift from God, returned to sender. It's very hard to find happiness in times of extreme loss and sadness like this. But part 5 just talks about remembering the love you have for that person, even though they're not here anymore. Talking about how their body might no longer be here, their spirit still is. And in the sense of Nujabes, that's 100% true. His influence, his spirit, and his just overall passion for this field that he was in has 100% outlived him. You can't see anything in lo-fi hip-hop or just underground hip-hop in general and look back on it and not see the influence of Nujabes. Music is one of the very few art forms that perfectly encapsulates your spirit even long after you've passed away. And like I said, that's 100% true with Nujabes. Part 5 is a tough listen, not because it's bad. It's very good, but just because of everything that's going on. Shingo2 just lost 2 of his greatest friends, but still is managing to find his love for them even after they're gone. And with everything he's written in part 5 and everything he's written previously, it all comes and correlates into one last track the grand finale. In the spring of 2010, when I visited Tribe Records, Takumi, the manager for Hideout, told me that there was a song titled Lovesick Grand Finale they discovered on his cell phone, his being Nujabes. I was quite shocked, and he played me the loop inside the store. It was a simple loop, but I instantly knew that we had to finish it. The only reason that he hadn't sent me the beat was because he was a perfectionist. If I had seen him more, we could have developed the foundation together. It's very fitting that the last beat for the last Lovesick installment was something that no one had ever heard before. A true grand finale or final goodbye from Nujabes. The song talks about Shingo 2's love for everything, but more importantly, the love of an ending. After 6 comes 7 and 8, access code to the pearly gates. They say heaven can wait, and you speak of fate, a finale to play for my mate. I see the angels draw the drapes over the earthscape, where the wine is the spirit of the grapes. Gotta finish what we started, so I cut the tape, as our records will stay on rotate. Now that whole section is him talking about finishing this series for Nujabes, but man, those last 2 lines are so good. Talking about finishing what he started, but the fact that the record is gonna stay rotating forever. This series was started in 2001, and I have still seen so much appreciation for the entirety of it 24 years later. That's crazy. The final 4 installments of Lovesick and just even the grand finale as its own song is such a beautiful testament to what this series has accomplished and how much of a lasting effect that's gonna have. The series is such a beautiful collection of songs talking about the power of love, whether it be about music, about people, about the world. And the grand finale encapsulates all of that and just talks about how this will still be true 20, 25, however many years in the future that this is going to be played for. And as a final thing I want to talk about for this song, happiness is a hot potato that you can't possess for long, just pass it along like a song. Music is meant to be shared, happiness is meant to be shared. Shingo 2 talks later in his commentary about how even though Hideout never distributed the songs worldwide, at first they found their way onto the internet and they had made fans all across the world and just connected everybody. And he talks about how happy and appreciative he was of that. Lovesick is truly a testament to how love can connect people all over the world and how it can apply to so many different things in life. And in my opinion, it perfectly encapsulates the lyrical genius of Shingo 2, and it perfectly preserves the masterfulness of Nujabes' production, but also just his intention as a person. This whole album, this series will always have such a strong effect on me, and I will love it forever. It's so amazing. And I hope it does the same for you. If you haven't listened to all of the series, I encourage you to go listen to it. I can't play any of it in this video just for copyright reasons, but go listen to it.
でも彼も本当に変わった人で、まあこう考えるとみんな変わってるんですけどね、彼も本当変わった人で、そうですね、やっぱりレコード店もやって、レーベルもやって、まあやっぱり彼はもう本当こだわりがある人だったんじゃないですかね。それでなんか僕は結構意見をいろいろ言う方なんで、こうしたらいい、ああしたらいいとか、やっぱそういうのは結構真面目に聞いてくれてたような印象がありますね。はい。なんか、はい。細かいところで。
I think that's what I'm going to leave you guys on. I didn't want to make this video too long, so I apologize if you guys wanted more of a breakdown. But I think I got everything that was important. If there's anything I missed, leave a comment, please. I would love to know. But I think that's gonna do it. Subscribe. I'll see y'all later. Goodbye.